Campaign 2018 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, Marshfield Clinic Health System, and Campaign 2018 partner Milwaukee Journal Sentinel.
WisconsinEye is on the campus of Gateway Technical College in Sturtevant, interviewing Cathy Myers of Janesville, a Democratic candidate in the 1st Congressional District. Cathy, welcome to WisconsinEye.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Is health care for all your #1 issue?
Yes, that is my #1 issue. I think that health care for all is long overdue. I believe that in this country, health care is a human right, and there's no excuses as to why we cannot make sure that everybody can go to the doctor.
How do you pay for it?
Well, there are a number of ways that you can pay for it. We're going to have to tax appropriately. We're going to have to make the top 1% pay their fair share. There's no doubt about that. But as the way that healthcare works, and this is about making the government basically the insurance company. It will drive down costs because there won't be all these different insurance mechanisms that you have to, and hoops that you have to go through. It will streamline the process quite a bit. But insurance works by adding more people to the pool. More people you add to the pool, the more you're able to drive down costs and keep costs lower.
Okay. And with President Trump having 2 more years on his term, if you're in the U.S. House for the next 2 years, how do you transition, lay the groundwork for health care for all?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that the groundwork for health care for all has actually been laid. There was a big discussion in the last presidential election, and I believe that people learned a lot about what it means to have Medicare for all. I believe that they understand the concept, and they certainly, thanks to the ACA, as imperfect as it was, it gave people an opportunity for health care that many of them never had before, and they realized just how fundamental it is to their lives. I think employers also realized how important this is, and the more that you have a healthy workforce, the more you have a productive workforce. And so I think that the groundwork has been laid.
The other major issue, of course, is the debate over immigration. Mm-hmm. Your position on Daca, the Daca youths and amnesty and the wall, please?
Mm-hmm. Well, I believe that we need to have a Clean Dream Act passed. These kids and their families, they should have a path to citizenship, and in the process they should be allowed to conduct themselves. They are our neighbors, they're our students, they're in our military, they're working here, and they have businesses here, and so it is to our benefit, I believe, to make sure that we have a path to citizenship for them.
Go ahead. Now, that's for Daca.
Yeah.
What about the 12 million that are not enrolled in Daca but are still here illegally?
So a lot of that is the result of our people who've overstayed visas, and what we fail to have, I believe, is adequate resources put into making sure that that process is done accordingly. We don't have enough people working on these issues in order to process these claims. And I think that when if you do make a claim, you have the right to due process. You have the right to be heard. If you come here seeking asylum, you have the right to be heard. We need people in place to hear those things and end the backlog that we have of people applying for citizenship or seeking citizenship in this country.
What should be the steps to citizenship for those 12 million? You've heard different people offer you should pay a fine, you should do some type of community service, you should wait X number of years. What steps do you favor in terms of giving them eventually citizenship?
Well, I don't know that a fine, is necessary. Are you talking about people who are here overstaying their visas?
Yes.
Okay.
Not the DACA
Right.
young people, but
Okay.
those that have overstayed, yes.
Sure. So, they can, I mean, I think that they need to, I guess it would depend on where they are in the process. If they have fallen off the map, then they perhaps should, start over again and, and reapply and that sort of thing. And I guess if they are caught, then they should be deported. And so that's the process. I think, the process in place isn't necessarily a bad one. I mean, we can always tweak things, but it's the fact that we have not applied resources and energy to solving this problem. We never have. We haven't done it for as long as I can remember. And so, if we don't have people to advance the process, in place to do it, what difference does it make whether you add a fine or something like that? We've got to solve that problem first.
The president's insistence that we build that wall, your reaction, please?
Well, I think the wall, we do have walls and we have fences already, but, I don't know that the wall is a deterrent, and I think that money could be spent in better ways, and certainly with increasing border patrol and surveillance and technology, things that are, that would have some flexibility, because things change, needs change. And so I think that the money toward that could be applied toward making sure that we have enough people available to process claims. So there's the wall, I think, is a distraction. I think that the wall is an attempt to offer something concrete to that seems simple to a very complex problem.
Congressman Mark Pocan of the 2nd District is introducing a bill this week that would abolish ICE. Your position on that?
Well, I think that ICE, I'm not really sure what exactly he's saying here, because I know the congressman does not want to get rid of immigration enforcement. And so, so what really are we saying? Are you talking about just eliminating immigration enforcement? I wouldn't think that he would propose that at all. I've said that if we need immigration enforcement, absolutely, but I believe that it needs to go back under the purview of the Justice Department, which is where it was. There's no oversight in Homeland Security, and certainly not the rule of law, and the expectations about due process are not being upheld. And so I think that we shift the oversight of this process back to where it was.
So we keep ICE, but move it from Homeland Security to the Department of Justice.
We keep immigration enforcement, yes. And you want to call it ICE, whatever. But immigration enforcement, yes, we move it to the Department of Justice.
The other raging issue nationally this week is the tariffs. Mm-hmm. The president has said we should use these tariffs for an equal playing field internationally. Mm-hmm. Your feeling?
Well, he's not wrong, because tariffs can be used that way. Tariffs can be used appropriately as leverage, but what I see out of this president is absolutely no comprehensive strategy. So he is applying tariffs to our friends and allies, and the result, of course, is that Wisconsin small business owners and farmers are suffering as a result of those actions. And and they're suffering, of course, because Paul Ryan, is here in Wisconsin, and it's almost a symbolic thing to attack those areas because because of Paul Ryan's association with the president. So, it is inappropriate, I think, to just do a scattergun approach to tariffs and to just apply them without any sort of understanding of cause and effect. Now, tariffs can be used to rein in bad actors. So Chinese steel, for instance, which was kind of what got the conversation going in the first place. China has been dumping steel in this country and affecting our industry and trade, and also affecting jobs here. And this started to happen in the 2000s, early 2000s, when we gave protected trade status to China, which basically meant, of course, that it's like a long-term agreement, and we don't recheck how things are working on an annual basis. Before that, we thought about it annually. You know, what is going to be our relationship with China in regards to trade? I think we need to go back to that. And if China is dumping steel or is harming our industry and our workers because of that, then we should raise a tariff on Chinese steel to handle that situation. But you got to be thoughtful. You got to think about cause and effect. And you must be strategic in the use of tariffs.
You've identified universal health care as your single biggest issue. Are there any specific issues that are unique to the 1st Congressional District that you learned about in the course of your campaign? Biggest needs for the CD?
I think really good paying jobs are really important in the 1st CD. As you know, and not just the 1st CD, but definitely here. We've taken a lot of hits over the last 10 years. In Wisconsin, 1 in 4 workers is working poor. That means that they're working at wages that are below the poverty level. I see nothing going on here to help mitigate that situation. Indeed, attempts or discussion about that, or maneuverings to bring things like Foxconn to this area, I think was a political strategy, not an economic or job strategy for this area. Foxconn promised jobs that would pay $23 to $26 an hour at the low end. But if you look on Simply Hired, where they advertise these positions, they're talking about jobs, and we're talking about the same ones, which is about 60% of their overall operation. They're talking about jobs that are going to pay between $11 and $12 an hour. I don't know how you support yourself on that, and certainly how do you support a family. We are shooting ourselves in the foot when we give corporate handouts and don't expect anything in return that benefits our workers.
So Foxconn will not be an economic upper for the 1st CD?
I don't think so, no. I don't think that Foxconn is going to benefit us, and the amount of investment that we've had to make in infrastructure, and of course, the billions of dollars, the $4.5 billion that taxpayers across the state are going to have to invest in this, and we're not going to reap any return for generations. So it is not going to be the boon that Paul Ryan and Scott Walker claim it will be.
Well, is there any next steps that we can take on Foxconn, since the state is contractually obligated to pay these tax breaks and incentives? Any next steps that you'd push for?
Well, that's a hard one because, when you make deals, you make deals. But I think we're going to, if they've already promised deals at jobs at $23 to $26 an hour, and they're not providing those jobs as advertised, I think we always need to be pushing back and say that, your original plan said this, and if you're not giving it that, then we should probably relook at this deal. There are other things too that are really significant, like the fact that they've fast-tracked and went past the environmental protections that are usually in place. And I think that we need to have more congressional oversight on the EPA. They've been rolling back regulations, and it's going to harm us. I'm really interested in seeing what's going to play out with the lawsuits that have been filed against Wisconsin by the state of Illinois. And to see how that pans out as far as environmental issues are concerned.
What should the minimum wage be in America?
Oh, I think that the minimum wage should be $15 an hour.
$15 an hour. The Trump administration sent Congress a budget that would significantly increase Pentagon spending by the military to, I think, more than $700 billion a year. Mm-hmm. Could you vote for a budget that boosted Pentagon spending that much?
No, I couldn't.
Should we cut
Yes.
military spending?
Budgets are about priorities. And military spending, making sure that we have a strong military is absolutely crucial. But to advance, that level of spending at a time where we need to improve our roads. I drove over here this morning, and it's a real teeth rattler on some of these roads. It is terrible, and it's unsafe. We have bridges that are crumbling. We need to invest in clean energy jobs, treat it like a stimulus. That's where that money could go. We could invest in education and make sure that our public schools are well funded and supported. There are so many things, within this country that we need to work on, that just bloating the military budget, which was already too big, is a poor decision and a budget that I could not vote for.
So you would not even vote for the current level of Pentagon spending?
No, I don't like the current level of Pentagon spending. I think that there's a lot of bloat in that as well.
You mentioned renewable energy. The president and other Republicans have questioned climate change. How real of a threat is climate change?
Climate change is real. It's us, and we can do something about it.
What?
Well, there's a number of things. First of all, we could start investing in clean energy, and that means manufacturing of solar panels and wind turbines. And we have manufacturing, we're capable here, especially in the 1st Congressional District, of manufacturing. We've got an infrastructure for that. And we should also be incentivizing certain things, like the driving of high mileage, mile per gallon cars, and or electric cars, and helping develop the infrastructure for people that want to drive electric vehicles. We should be offering. We actually have a plan that our campaign has proposed that will take us off of fossil fuels by 2015. And I know it's aggressive, but I attend the Midwest Regional Energy Association Fair up in Custer, Wisconsin every year. And they always have a great keynote speaker, and I remember Bill McKibben being there, maybe 10 years ago. And he is in charge of 350.org, which is about the number of particles, carbon particles in the air. And we were over 350 particles, that were supposed to be at this point. I think we're approaching 400 if we haven't surpassed that by now. This was a long time ago that he was saying we were at a tipping point. And we need to treat it like our moonshot, because if we don't, we harm the next generations. The legacy that we leave will be unclean and unfit.
Your campaign website has several specific recommendations on gun laws. Mm-hmm. You want to ban assault weapons. You want to raise the age of purchase to 21. What other steps do you want taken with gun laws?
Well, there are other things that we can do. And by the way, these things are supported by the majority of people, even the majority of gun owners. So nothing we're suggesting is out of the realm of possibility. It has just been a matter of a lack of political will to do anything about this from our leaders. Things like banning bump stocks. That's right, or high capacity magazines. And making universal background checks truly universal. There are provisions where if someone comes and applies for a weapon, there's like a 3-day window, and if the people that are processing those requests can't meet that deadline of 3 days, and the person just gets the gun anyway. Now we can. If we believe in this, then we should make sure that there are plenty of people processing those requests for a gun. And if we believe it, and I do. So there are things that we can do to actually make sure that we limit the number of guns out there and make sure that it's just in the hands of people that are not criminals. People that are not domestic abusers. We should close the loopholes, through gun shows and things like that.
Private sale?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay. You're on the Janesville School Board.
Yeah.
Given your work on school issues, what's the role of the federal government on our K-12 school system?
Well, the federal government plays a role in things like Title I, Title II, Title IX, and those are things that help us meet the needs of students in poverty, students that, our special ed students are served through our involvement with the federal government. And obviously protections like for equality for women through Title IX. So they're very important, and we need assistance from the federal government in order to meet the needs of our students, especially in those cases.
Are those federal programs funded enough?
Probably not. I know that the funding seems to be right now, this is through the ESEA, and it started in the 60s. And it seems to be funded consistently right now, but it is, things are always subject to change, and we always worry about that. The need doesn't go away just because the support might go away.
The federal deficit has risen to 21 trillion with a T.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts on how to bring that down, or at least control it?
Well, one way we can bring that down is stop giving tax breaks to the very top, the 1% or the 1/2 of 1%. Things like the changes that they made to the estate tax, are ridiculous. We seem to, during the Clinton administration and the Obama administration, we had surpluses in our budgets that could have been applied toward bringing down the deficit. And I'm really tired of Democrats being labeled as somehow or another being fiscally irresponsible. Every administration from Reagan has blown up the budget. And that is because they are beholden to corporations who want to increase the salaries for CEOs and keep the salaries and wages for their workers low and increase the benefits to their shareholders. It is about, again, it's about priorities, and the priority always seems to be with a certain group of people and not average Americans.
So, that 21 trillion debt then is a ticking bomb that at some point has to be addressed?
I think it does, yes. And I think that, I know that this tax plan is relatively new, but I think we need to do everything we can to bring it back. And and bring taxation to a better level so that we can meet the needs of our citizens and not blow up this deficit, which our children are going to be paying for.
Social Security, the latest estimate, technically bankrupt by 2034. Mm-hmm. How would you fix Social Security? Well,
one way we can fix Social Security is by raising the threshold on which you are taxed. So right now, I think it's at 128,000. Mm-hmm. So your first 128,000 of income is taxed on Social Security, and if you make anything over that, it's not. And so I don't think it is an unreasonable change to increase that, or we could even look at throwing it out entirely. And if you earn, you should pay Social Security tax.
Medicaid, the Trump administration is approving waivers that ties Medicaid and other social benefits to additional work and training requirements. Do you support those?
I think that those are ways to make sure that poor people have just one more hoop to jump through. Medicaid also helps people that can't work for health reasons, and so I think that I really believe that people want to work. I think that it's not living high on the hog to have to rely on Medicaid, and I believe that that if there are really great paying jobs and there are ample jobs, and by the way, a lot of people on Medicaid are working already, let's not forget that. And so I really think that talk like that is oftentimes used to demonize people who are our most vulnerable people, and to take our eye off of what's really happening, which is that there are giveaways happening to corporations and people at the very top all the time. And so it's a distraction meant to keep us from really dealing with the issue.
Did you announce your campaign before Speaker Ryan announced his retirement?
Yes, I announced my campaign on June 22nd, 2017. So I've been at this for over a year.
How did the dynamics of the campaign in the first CD change once the Speaker announced that he would not seek re-election for you?
Well, we were always going to have a strong grassroots campaign. We were always going to have a lot of voter contact and conversations with people. So our strategy didn't change all that much. That was how we were planning on beating the Speaker, and and bringing this seat back, for the first time in 20 years. I would say that the Speaker's retirement makes it even more possible for us to take this seat, because we're not campaigning against Paul Ryan's name recognition. And even some people that study this stuff and prognosticators have said that this is now a toss-up. It is still not going to be easy, just because we're not fighting Paul Ryan, just because it's an open seat. Paul Ryan has put his support behind one of the people on the Republican ticket. That person will have a lot of advantages because of their association with Paul Ryan in this district. But I think that we were always going to be a hardworking campaign that talked to people on a regular basis and carried our vision and our experience and our hopes and dreams to people, and that hasn't changed a bit.
One other item on your campaign website I want to ask you about: free public colleges. How would that work? Would it be for tech colleges? Would it be for four-year institutions? Your plan?
Well, we could start with tech colleges and community colleges, and we could expand that to 4 years. There was a time in this country when we invested in higher education because we understood that it was an investment and that we benefited as a result. So, people who maybe graduated from high school in the late 60s, early 70s, were able to work for the summer and earn enough money to pay their tuition for the entire year. They still paid in, but what we've seen, and I have two children that are in their 20s. I've seen, this business of the cost of college is something that I've experienced myself through my kids, and it is exorbitant. And of course, then they take out student loans, and which is necessary in order to be able to earn the degree. And then they have this student loan debt on top of everything else, and then they walk out into a workforce that doesn't necessarily pay them with a college degree a living wage. And it's not just because of what they chose to do. My son went into the info systems area, lots of jobs in that, but they still weren't paying a living wage, even though he had a degree.
What about student loans and the student debt? Can anything be done at the national level, or is that a state-by-state issue?
I think that a number of things can be done at the national level. First of all, we could increase the money that we use for Pell Grants. And of course, I talked about free college and things like that we could do. That will help out tremendously. And we could also do things like allow students with student loan debt to discharge their debt in bankruptcy if they have to. We could have loan forgiveness for people going into areas of need, and not only geographically, but also the kind of work that we need. We could also allow students to reorganize their loans and make sure that they get a lower rate or consolidate them such so that they can do that. Those things are not always as available as one would think.
Some Democratic members of the U.S. House want to they're talking about beginning the process of impeaching President Trump. If your party took over the U.S. House and you were part of that new majority, would you join the movement to begin the impeachment process?
I would. I mean, we looked in our campaign. We looked at impeachment by use of the emoluments clause. We did that last fall, and we examined what it was. You know, and the emoluments clause is about the fact that as an elected official, as president, you should not benefit financially from things from other foreign nations, for instance. And obviously, our president did not divest of his businesses. And the result, of course, is that when foreign nations and entities come here and they stay at his facilities, he is benefiting by that. And they have incentive to do that because they have business with the president. And so, you know, he could have taken care of a lot of that by divesting. I don't know why he chose not to do that. I think it was a horrible mistake. And it also means to me that he's not about serving the people. He's about serving his own interests. So there's a possibility that we could do that, and I would certainly vote yes to proceed with that idea. I am waiting to hear from the Mueller investigation over whether there is a case to be made on an obstruction of justice.
Both parties in the U.S. House are debating their leadership. If you're a member of the new majority of Democrats, would you vote for former Speaker Pelosi?
Well, I have a lot of respect for people who are in leadership. I understand how hard it is. I don't know yet. You know, let me get there, and I want to see who else wants the job, and I want a real examination of what their vision is, what their priorities are, you know, and what their qualifications are and their strategy. I want to know that. I believe in primaries, obviously, because I'm in primaries. I think primaries are good. Competition is good. I think Speaker Pelosi, should welcome competition and have to make her case as to why she should remain leader. And I am very willing to consider all the options. I want to see who's there first, though.
Which leads me to my final question. You want to highlight differences between you and your primary opponent, Mr. Bryce? The primary is August 14th.
Yes, thank you. The primary is August 14th, and voters in this district have a big decision to make. And it's a very important decision because this is the best opportunity for Democrats to take back this seat in 20 years. And so we have to make sure that we have the strongest candidate to take back that seat, and I'm the candidate to do it. The differences between me and my primary opponent include things like experience. I'm an elected official. I have been elected twice and was top vote getter each time. I have run on a platform that I've been very open about. I ran in response to Act 10, and I served that way, and I have also been reelected. And so I know what it takes to win and to serve, and I think that that is something that has been, that people in this district really want, is someone who will not only win an election, but knows how to serve. My primary opponent and I differ on a few issues. He's flip-flopped on a few things, like immigration. He used to support the idea that local law enforcement should work with ICE in their communities, which I think is a terrible idea, that it destroys the relationship that local law enforcement has with its community. He has also flip-flopped on a woman on choice, in that he used to support parental consent, and that is just another way, I think, for women, another hurdle that women have to jump through in order to get and be able to have access to the kind of health care that they need. He has also supported pipelines. He has lobbied for them. He's done so on social media in the past. And I'm a strong environmentalist, and I believe that expanding our pipelines is a bad idea, especially the ones that come through Wisconsin that carry tar sands oil, and which is highly toxic. And again, we should be pushing hard to get off of fossil fuels by 2035. And so expanding that pipeline, it just reinforces our dependence on fossil fuels.
Thank you. Cathy Myers of Janesville is a Democratic candidate in the 1st Congressional District. The primary is August 14th. Cathy, thanks for talking to WisconsinEye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Campaign 2018 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, Marshfield Clinic Health System, and Campaign 2018 partner Milwaukee Journal Sentinel.